Warp in 3, 2, 1.
Alright, computer, let's hook up to the local GNet hub and get this show on the road.
Initiating connection to Jupiter GNet Hub. Connection to Jupiter GNet Hub established.
Okay, computer, open up comms to all our viewers and begin transmitting our latest file.
Transmitting. John and the space boat. Lifeblood.
SLUM pizza, tasty bacon and cheese SLUM pizza. The freshest herbs picked daily from our hydroponics, smothered with sauce made from real Italian tomatoes. Big size, larger than the rest. This is the best deal you can find on the docks. 2 slices for 1 cred. The child was no older than 9, loudly advertising her food with a squeaky yet confident voice. You couldn't be showing any hesitance, unless you wanted your food cart business to fail. John chuckled, and after rummaging through his pockets, pulled 2 1-cred coins. He then gave the appropriate sign in trade lingo, and in under a minute, his hands held a combo vac foam package, 4 piping hot slices of pizza inside. Buying 4 slices was not only a good way to support the local economy. John wanted to stash more foods in his spaceship's stasis fridge and bring them as a present for his wife. That people called this SLUM pizza specifically, he had a general idea why. In the early days of space colonization, there were tightly packed, slum-type districts sprawling across the bigger colonies. Indeed, to the uneducated observer, these did look like mishmash of huddled, tiny buildings where people lived in extreme squalor. That couldn't be further from the truth, however, and John often remembered pictures of early 19th century Earth, compared these modern quote-unquote slums with what real poverty looked like. Even a person who made no more than a few creds today lived like a king when compared to the paupers of the past. Earlier today, he chatted with navigators and captains from the small-line ships waiting to land before him, gathering up more up-to-date info. Most of the vessels were full of locals returning from their weekend trips. 1/2 filled passenger ship carrying Martian tourists, being the most notable spacecraft of the bunch. Of course, from the moment he set foot on the docks, John started another stream. Eve bypassed all data through Spaceboat's comm console, and he had to agree. The ex-militia ops specialist had paws of gold. Everything which he had to do by himself, she now did, and significantly faster. He spent an hour and a half prowling the outer docks, spotting a couple street food stalls from a distance. Since he landed during the evening rush hour, most dock workers and others who'd just docked swarmed the area in the tens of thousands. A choir of voices, all speaking in different Terran dialects and Old Earth languages, with more than plenty of Starblood aliens chattering with each other, filled his ears. It was like a balm, a healing salve for his long-since starved of social contact mind, and he let himself soak up every sound. The otherwise short stream turned into a long one since, no matter how much he hurried, the food stalls were completely sold out before he reached them. His last hope was that pizza kid. Thankfully, the girl was perhaps late to arrive, which meant that there was still food in her cart. Good job this one did. She even had hollow flyers stamped all over his pizza package, and the kid was part of a group called the Grub Club. He smiled, showing one of the flyers in front of his holocam. See, what did I tell you? This place is absolutely swarming with all kinds of street foods. You simply have to be quick or you'll stay hungry. John gave his viewers another full circle of the place where he stood, almost at the dock's center. Cheerful shouts came from a nearby starship. The vessel looked like a transport outfitted for war, its armored hull covered with colorful decals. Those meant that the vessel was most probably a spacer ship whose crew had volunteered for some colonial navy mission. The rowdy bunch of spacesuit-wearing men and women exited their vessel and, forming a small, 100-strong crowd, made their way through the large mass of people swarming the docks. John knew exactly where these space wolves were going, a bar called the Roundabout. He visited the place a few times, but only when most of its spacer patrons were missing. For some reason, every time he landed on Cav, despite the fact that the largest space community lived here, the bulk of them were always away. This time, however, luck was on his side, and John aimed to capitalize. After the interview Sonny gave him, he hoped that spacers would be more open, willing to speak with him. Even if it did not answer questions in front of his camera, still, simply chatting with them was an unforgettable experience. Not to mention every time you talked to a spacer, there was a chance of them dropping some juicy info. Wow, so many spacers, I know exactly where they're going. John checked the clock. His stream was getting close to the second hour mark. I guess we still have plenty of time before the heavy comm traffic lags the local GNet node. What do you think, Eve? Yes, we have 1 full hour at least. I'll keep you posted, boss, chimed his assistant. The color of her voice more or less recovered. 1 day had already passed since she told him the grisly story of how that trophy particle gun got in her possession. Excellent. See now, this is exactly what you signed up for. Follow me and I will show you some secret, sneaky ways of how to quickly reach that famous bar. The Roundabout was once an integral part of the colony's main docks, but since Cav's population grew to the impressive over 3.5 million inhabitants, everything else had to increase in size. Now the largest spacer bar in the fringe could be most speedily reached via the station's maintenance corridors. The Cavians call these claustrophobically tight passageways the veins. They had built an entire hive of workshop and low-cost apartments around them. These corridors were no longer used to maintain anything since most big machines and station systems got relocated or upgraded, leaving a lot of unused space behind. On other alien space stations, similar areas were quickly sold to the highest bidder, who either rented it, built an apartment complex, or something else. In Terran space, after the locals gathered enough funds to buy the space, they either constructed a hive-like living area, small workshops, or a combination of both. On Cav, the Veins was one such area, which locals built with the clear purpose to aid others, less fortunate Terrans. Many new colonists suffered attacks or hurdles of a more mundane nature en route to their original destinations. They needed cheap, affordable housing and temporary working arrangements. Even a low-paying job was preferable. The Veins were such a place, and John knew many who spent a year or more here, living not in total comfort, but still comparably well until they could fix their situation. Some fell in love with the place and settled here instead. Despite the tight living conditions, it was probably the cheapest area to live, and one could always rely on one's neighbor to help. The jobs you could get here were simple, nothing highly profitable, yet that community was perhaps one of the hardest groups on the border, mostly made up from industrious colonists, Terrans whose goal was to build a new life for themselves on another planet. Truly, the Veins was a place like no other. John entered the closest passageway, sliding past a shopping drone repair shop, and just now remembered to call Eve. Eve, would you be so kind as to order one of the shopping drones to wait for me near the Roundabout? I want to use its stasis fridge and store not only the pizza, but possibly more of the local street foods," asked John, barely able to sneak past one of the recently assembled grab cars. A couple of junior would-be mechanics locked in a heated argument about why there were extra parts left. "I'm doing that now. You'll have the drone there in a couple minutes, boss. Anything else?" "No, thank you, Eve. Did you read the comments, by the way? It seems that our viewers love the excellent work you do." The bunny quietly laughed and pointed at the end of the corridor. "It'll take me a few dozen minutes or so to reach the exit, but before that, I'll let you experience the hidden part of Cav's culture, the veins." John carefully pointed his camera forward and locked the shoulder mount from rotating since there were plenty of windows cut into the walls and open doors on his sides. Those were people's homes. Sometimes other H-luggers forgot that the lives of others had to be respected. Instead of chattering, he chose to remain silent and just increase the sensitivity of his camera's audio recording sensors. Soon, the stream filled with comments. People were discussing one or another sound, what the residents were shouting at each other through the windows. Oftentimes, in close, tight-knit neighborhoods like this one, people would simply walk around in their slippers and dressed in short pants and grab food from their neighbor's table. Of course, these food bandits did so while leaving food stuff or drink in place of what they took themselves. Near the end of the corridor, John's path was suddenly blocked by an outstretched hand holding a ladle. The unspeakably aromatic stew almost made him trip, and after tracing the hand with his eye, he soon scouted its owner. A powerfully built old woman was standing beside a grab stove, one hand holding an ancient recipe book written on paper. She grumbled almost angrily at him and moved the ladle even closer to his face. "Did you think you could sneak past me or vein here and not get at least one bit of food? My grandkids will never forgive me if I miss you, John." The ladle was full of golden soup, huge chunks of buffalo meat and vegetables merrily floating in it. Dark red carrots, cabbage, yellow brownish potatoes, and silvery slices of giant onions bumped into one another, fighting for dominance with the big pieces of meat. Freshly cut herbs unleashed wave after wave of aromatic scents, rapidly winning a battle most uneven in his brain, and after finally surrendering, John heard him say, mouth-watering, "No, of course not, Auntie." He rotated the holocam and grinned. "Now you see, this is exactly what you signed up for." "Okay, computer, that's it. Disconnect from the local GNet hub and set course for Kavora."
Disconnecting GNet. Setting course. Kavora. Spooling engines now. Initiating. Jumping in 3, 2, 1.